Go right back out to Jake Ryle, who is standing by. Thank you, Steve, with more information on what's going on with that fire. Jake?
Yeah, Tanya, very fluid situation right now. In fact, we've got the fire chief talking with one of the investigators out here, both wearing white caps. So obviously we're about to get some information from them. But here's the latest that we know so far. We do know 8 apartment units, at least 8, have been impacted by this fire. On top of that, more than a dozen people have been displaced. I actually, not too long ago, had a chance to talk with the person who lives in this apartment just beyond here, apartment 74. They said they were in the process of moving out. Most of their valuables were gone, so that is good news there. However, they do have some damage to their apartment. Now, we are still waiting on that final update from fire officials here on the scene to try to get a little bit more information. You know, it's been talked about the layout inside of these apartments. While we don't know the specific floor plan inside of these apartments, you can see even behind here. In fact, I'll hop out of the way. It's very hard to see right now just with all the smoke. But that roof combines multiple apartment units. We're talking 3 or 4 apartment units, which would make it very difficult for firefighters to be able to track down the fire. Of course, it only takes 1 or 2 embers to be able to really get this thing going and keep it going. So fire crews have had a tough time there trying to make sure those hot spots have been put out. Of course, it's hard to tell right here, but you're not able to see the roof. It's been completely collapsed out of that one apartment building as we still wait here for that final update. We are expecting to hear from the fire chief at around 6 o'clock. Of course, it's just a little bit beyond that, so we're hoping to hear from them a little bit more about this.
All right, Jake Ryle reporting there on the ground on the scene of this fire. We want to go back up to Dan Carroll in Chopper 9. And Dan, you know, Jake mentioned some of the hotspot issues. You've actually seen at times where the roof was in place, but then 15, 20 minutes later, the roof were completely gone as this fire tore through that entire structure.
Yeah, and when we first got here, we're looking at what this building runs essentially from east to west. So this is the west end of the building. And when we first got here, they were putting a lot of water on you see the part of the building where the roof is collapsed, the extreme west end. Well, there's some heavy damage here, but at least the roof is still partially intact. They were able to vent it and get some of the smoke out of there, so they were at least able to keep the extreme west end of the building intact. But as you look at it now, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 units there where the roof is completely gone. The 5th unit is completely gone. Smoke continues to come out of some more of these units in the middle part of the building, and then you can't even see the extreme east end of the building because it is obscured by the heavy smoke that we are seeing right now. So the smoke continues to come out. The fire continues to burn, although it's not as heavy as it was a little while ago. They are starting to make some progress, but again, this is a long way from this fire being under control. I'm Dan Carroll in Chopper 9.
All right, Dan, thank you very much for the latest there. All right, we have the news conference starting right now. Jake Ryle's out there with the chief.
Sorry, I'm just stalling you because we're taking you live. If you can, for everyone, pronounce your name and spell it and give us your title.
Don Bennett. Last name is Bennett, B-E-N-N-E-T-T, Fire Chief, City of Fairfield.
What can you tell us, Chief? Starting now.
At 2:47, we received an alarm, a fire at 82 Brittany Lane. Upon arrival, we found a fully involved structure. These are townhouse occupancies. We have since learned that the occupant of the area of origin was cooking and left the building, came back to find the entire building condo on fire. When we arrived, it was lapping up the back. We had 2 things we had to battle. Construction methodology lent itself to horizontal spread of fire, and we were lacking serious water supply for the amount of fire we had. As you see, this is a rare occasion in the city of Fairfield that we're actually doing tanker operations to compensate for the deficiency in the water. At this point in time, we have no injuries. The occupant of the area of origin, her husband was transported due to shortness of breath. I have no names at this time. We have approximately 8 departments on scene, 47 personnel, and no reported injuries as of this time. I would expect that we will be here most of the night dealing with an overhaul situation because a fire of this magnitude and damage lends itself to multiple rekindles throughout the night.
Chief, would you say the fire is under control at this point?
Yes. We have no more to damage. Some of my friends will say the method of extinguishment lack of combustibles. So the way what we were battling here is that there is a flat roof on these buildings and then a truss structure above. So when it gets horizontal through that, we have no way of accessing the attic area because of the existing roof decking that once was on the building. They just built over it. So that eliminated any opportunity to us for go inside and try to contain the fire.
Explain the problem and the issue, the obstacles you had with the water finishing?
Yeah, this complex was built in the 70s. Water mains are relatively small, approximately 6 inches. A lot of tuberculation in it. Known water supply in this area has been a concern. Normal fires are sufficient amount, but when we need to flow 4,000 to 5,000 gallons a minute, it's just not going to sustain our operations.
Chief, I see you guys be foam too. Can you talk about the different methods you had to use
Yeah,
with this?
most of the fire service use what's called a Class A foam. Class A foam is used on ordinary combustible fires. You're very familiar with the Class B used on flammable liquids. Class A foam has a tendency and is trapped to hydrocarbon, and it allows the extinguishment of fire to progress quite quickly.
Did firefighters have to go in and rescue anyone, or were you guys able to get everyone out?
No, there was no rescue. As far as I know, everybody was out of the building when our first unit arrived.
Working smoke detectors as well.
Yeah, I heard some. Yeah, there was some chirping as we were working on the outside of the building. So I'm going to go ahead and say that they were present and working. And, you know, we'll certainly display, if there was a benefit to this fire, it occurred late in the afternoon, not at 2:47 in the morning.
Can you talk about how is it fortunate that nobody was injured in a fire this size?
You get a fire of this nature and the unpredictability of its horizontal and vertical spread, it lends itself to a quick and rapid. What we would expect in a fire like this in terms of injuries most likely would be smoke inhalation. In this case, we were fortunate we didn't have to deal with that.
Can you talk about the manpower too that's involved in this? I've counted at least 4 or 5 different departments.
Yeah, we have 8 departments. What we have in the city of Fairfield, we have a response card system. We dropped a 3rd alarm on this, and in addition to the tankers. There are units from Hamilton, Forest Park, Springdale, Liberty Township, Ross. They have, and from the Hamilton guys came down. So we rely on Westchester's here as well. So that's the fortunate side about the fire service. When there is a big fire, we can draw resources in, and they're very willing to help.
Is there a plan for where these people that are displaced?
They're in the hands of the Red Cross right now, and they're in the hands of the Red Cross right now. Temporary housing will be provided by the Red Cross, but I don't know the particulars. And I have to assume there's probably people coming home from work right now that have no idea that there was a fire in their residence.
We just saw a wall collapse a little bit ago. How structurally sound is the building?
I'm sorry, can you say again?
We just saw the wall come down a little bit ago.
Yeah, these are what we refer to as mansard roofs, the shingles that are vertical, and they're merely tacked on studs that the fire will burn out the plate, the weight will fall down. That's what lends itself to the vertical spread to get into the roof. Fire venting out of a window gets into that mansard roof, it's a chimney right up to the soffit, and then it's into the roof, which was the case here.
How were you able to stop it from spreading? Those flames were huge, from spreading to the next unit.
Well, there's a break there, and we were fortunate.
We've been,
knowing that the
listening
fire
to-
was working ahead of us, we've
been listening to the fire chief there give us an update on the situation out there, saying that the fire is contained. 8 different departments working on this fire, approximately 44 personnel on the ground, and starting with a cooking fire, actually, that got out of control.
And no one is hurt. That's the great
Correct.
news. One person sent to the hospital with a shortness of breath situation, but excellent news there. No one needed rescuing. We're going to wrap this up, send it to break. We'll be right back with more on 9 on Your Side at 6.